I clicked open my performance review at 9:43 a.m. on a Tuesday and nearly spat coffee onto my keyboard. The document claimed I had missed every deadline since March, called my work sloppy and unacceptable, and suggested I be placed on immediate probation with possible termination. My heart pounded so loud I thought the office plants could hear it. And trust me, those plants had seen some drama. I had met every single deadline, won 2 team awards in the last quarter, and had emails time-stamped and color-coded to prove it. My manager, Mr. Barrett, had literally smiled at me 5 minutes earlier and complimented my presentation. I realized with ice-cold clarity that the review was falsified by him, and my stomach dropped like overproof dough in a hot kitchen. I sat frozen at my desk, rereading the review 3 times, each pass making my blood pressure spike higher. Frequently late to work when I'd been early every day for 6 months. Poor communication skills when I'd led 3 successful client presentations last month. Negative attitude affecting team morale when I'd organized the office birthday parties and brought donuts every Friday. This wasn't just inaccurate, this was fiction. This was a hit piece written by someone who apparently confused me with a completely different human being. Or, more likely, someone who needed to eliminate me for reasons I hadn't figured out yet. My desk mate, Leo, a guy who wore Hawaiian shirts to corporate meetings and somehow got away with it, leaned over and whispered, "You okay? You look like you just watched someone microwave fish in the break room." I showed him the review. His eyes widened. "That review is faker than mall sushi," he said, loud enough that 3 people turned around. I laughed so hard I snorted, which made him laugh, which created a brief moment of hysteria that probably looked insane to anyone watching. But Leo was right. This review was fake, malicious, and most importantly, provably false. I decided to treat the lie like bad sushi, expose it before it poisoned me. I spent the rest of that afternoon gathering evidence like a detective on a crime procedural. Every email where Mr. Barrett had praised my work, every deadline I'd met, complete with timestamps and client confirmations, screenshots of team award announcements, even a physical thank you card from a client that I'd kept in my desk drawer like a sentimental fool. I created a folder on my personal Google Drive and labeled it Receipts because if I was going down, I was going down swinging with documentation. I saved every file meticulously, organized by date and category, with a master index that would make a librarian weep with joy. By 5 p.m., I had a 40-page document of proof. I smiled at Mr. Barrett as I left the office like I hadn't just spent 8 hours planning his professional downfall. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios. Why would Mr. Barrett falsify my review? We'd always had a decent working relationship. He'd never seemed to have a problem with me. Then I remembered. Last month, during a department meeting, I'd accidentally corrected him in front of the senior VP. He'd said our Q2 numbers were down 15%. I'd pulled up the actual data showing they were up 12%. The VP had thanked me for the clarification. Mr. Barrett's face had gone red, but he'd laughed it off. Apparently, he hadn't actually laughed it off. Apparently, he'd been planning revenge. Well, 2 could play that game, and I had better data. The next morning, Mr. Barrett called me into his office at 10 a.m. sharp. He sat behind his desk, fingers steepled like a movie villain, smiling like a cat who'd eaten the canary and the receipt proving the canary ever existed. "We need to discuss your performance review," he said smoothly. I sat down, placed my hands calmly in my lap, and replied, "Which performance? The one where I win team awards, or the one where you fabricate negative reviews?" He blinked, clearly not expecting me to come out swinging. Then he laughed like I'd told a hilarious joke. "Cordelia, I don't know what you're implying, but—" I smiled wider, heart thumping like a drum solo, and interrupted, "I brought receipts." His laughter died faster than my motivation on Monday mornings. I pulled out a printed copy of my documentation because nothing says I'm serious like 40 pages of evidence, and slid it across his desk. This is every deadline I met since January, every positive email you sent me, every award nomination. And this, I tapped a particular page, is the thank you card from the Harrison account, the one you told the senior VP was the best client work our team has produced. That was my project, my work. So either you have amnesia or you're lying. Which is it? Mr. Barrett's face cycled through several colors not found in nature. He picked up the packet, flipped through a few pages, and set it down like it might explode. There must be some confusion. I'll look into this. His voice had lost its smooth confidence and gained a slight tremble. I stood up, smoothing my skirt like I'd just concluded a pleasant conversation about the weather. You do that. In the meantime, I'll be filing a formal complaint with HR. I assume you understand that falsifying performance reviews is grounds for termination. Just wanted to make sure we're both clear on company policy. I walked out of his office with my head high and my heart pounding, leaving him sitting there looking like someone had just told him Santa wasn't real. I went straight to HR and requested an emergency meeting with Miss Rivera, the HR director who had a reputation for being fair but terrifying. She was a woman in her 50s who wore power suits and had a stare that could make grown men confess to crimes they didn't commit. I walked into her office with my evidence folder labeled Receipts and a determination that felt both empowering and slightly insane. She gestured for me to sit and said, "I heard you might be stopping by. Mr. Barrett called me this morning. Tell me your side." I presented my case like a lawyer with color-coded sticky notes and evidence tabs. I showed her every email where Mr. Barrett had praised my work, every deadline documentation, every award announcement. I showed her the thank you card from the Harrison account. I pulled up screenshots of our team communication channel where Mr. Barrett had publicly complimented my projects. Then I showed her my performance review, that piece of fiction that claimed I was the worst employee since the invention of employment. Miss Rivera's eyebrow raised higher with each piece of evidence. By the end, both eyebrows had practically merged with her hairline. "This is concerning," she said, which in HR speak meant, "Someone is getting fired and it's not going to be you." She studied Mr. Barrett's signature on the false review, compared it to his signature on the positive emails, and made notes with a pen that looked expensive enough to cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "We'll launch a formal investigation," she said, her tone suggesting she'd seen this movie before, but never with such good documentation. "In the meantime, that review will be removed from your file. Continue your work as normal. And Cordelia, good job keeping records." I smiled, heart steady for the first time in 24 hours, and said, "I'll wait for the investigation results." I went back to my desk and started a new folder labeled Popcorn because I knew the show was about to start. Over the next week, I kept working, meeting deadlines, and smiling at Mr. Barrett like I hadn't just potentially ended his career. The office atmosphere got weird. People whispered in corners. Leo kept giving me thumbs up from across the room. Mr. Barrett avoided making eye contact with me and suddenly found reasons to work from home 3 days that week. I started a new project, documenting everything, every email, every meeting, every interaction. I labeled the folder Receipts 2.0 and smiled at the irony of becoming a professional receipt collector. My colleagues started asking quiet questions. "Is it true you reported Barrett? Did he really fake your review?" I answered with jokes and strategic silence. The office felt like a courtroom where everyone had popcorn and opinions. Stumbled across a folder labeled Performance Reviews Archive. Curious and maybe slightly nosy, I clicked through. What I found made my jaw drop so hard I'm surprised it didn't hit the floor and bounce. Mr. Barrett had falsified performance reviews before, 3 times in the past 2 years to be exact. 3 other employees, All women, all around my age, all with similar patterns. Excellent work suddenly documented as terrible. Awards and achievements mysteriously absent from official records. Each woman had either quit or been pressured out of the company shortly after their negative reviews. I took screenshots of everything, cross-referenced dates, and found patterns that would make a conspiracy theorist proud. Mr. Barrett's signatures on these false reviews had subtle differences from his legitimate signatures, like he was rushing or nervous or trying to make them look official without actually taking responsibility. I saved everything to Receipts 3.0 and felt a cold anger settle in my chest. This wasn't just about me. This was about a pattern of abuse. This was about women's careers being sabotaged by a man who apparently had issues with competent female employees. I started documenting his meetings, his email patterns, his behavior. The evidence grew like a well-watered plant, and I was the gardener with an excellent memory and better organizational skills. I requested another meeting with Ms. Rivera, this time bringing evidence that filled a full binder. She took one look at the thickness of my documentation and said, "Should I cancel my afternoon?" I nodded. We spent 3 hours going through everything. The pattern of falsified reviews, the 3 previous women who'd left the company, the timeline showing it always happened after these women had outperformed or corrected Mr. Barrett in some public way. Ms. Rivera's expression went from concerned to anger to coldly professional. "We'll need to expand our investigation," she said, which in HR speak meant someone is definitely getting fired and also possibly sued. She made calls while I sat there, first to the legal department, then to the senior VP, then to someone she only referred to as the big boss, which I assumed meant someone even scarier than her. Each conversation was brief and professional, but I could feel the temperature in the room dropping with each call. When she hung up from the final call, she looked at me with something that might have been respect. "You've done us a significant service by bringing this to our attention. We'll be conducting interviews with the previous employees affected. In the meantime, Mr. Barrett will be placed on administrative leave pending investigation. You'll report directly to the senior VP for your current projects." I walked out of that office feeling like I'd just completed a marathon. My legs shook, my hands trembled, but my heart felt steady and strong. I went back to my desk and started a new folder labeled Finale, because I knew the show was about to reach its climax. Leo gave me a look that was half impressed, half terrified. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the craziest," he whispered. "Maybe both," I replied, and we both laughed nervously. The next morning, Mr. Barrett was escorted from the building by security. I watched from my desk as he walked past, carrying a sad cardboard box of his personal items, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights, and receipts and karma. He didn't look at anyone. No one looked at him. The silence was louder than any speech could have been. After he left, the office erupted in whispered conversations. Leo leaned over and whispered, "Bye, Felicia," and I had to cover my mouth to keep from laughing inappropriately. My colleagues started appearing at my desk with congratulations, thanking me for finally doing something about Barrett, sharing their own stories of his subtle bullying and gaslighting. I felt like I'd accidentally started a revolution, armed with nothing but Google Drive and determination. 3 weeks later, I got called into the senior VP's office. I walked in expecting, I don't know what, maybe a lecture about rocking the boat, maybe a warning about being a troublemaker. Instead, I got a promotion. "We've completed our investigation," the VP said, a woman named Patricia Brennan who'd built her career on being terrifyingly competent. "Mr. Barrett has been terminated. We've also settled with the 3 previous employees he targeted, and we're implementing new review protocols to prevent this from happening again." She slid a folder across her desk. "We'd like to offer you a promotion to senior project manager with a 20% raise and a corner office. You've demonstrated integrity, attention to detail, and, frankly, courage we value." I took the promotion, the raise, and the corner office with windows that faced the sunrise. I smiled, heart steady and proud, and said, I earned this. And I had. Not just through my work, but through refusing to be silenced, through documenting truth, through standing up not just for myself, but for women I'd never met who'd been pushed out before me. My colleagues threw an impromptu celebration in the break room with grocery store cake and cheap champagne from someone's desk drawer. I made a speech about believing women, keeping receipts, and never underestimating the power of a well-organized Google Drive folder. Everyone cheered like we'd all won something important. Because we had. I moved into my new office, a space with actual walls instead of fabric cubicle dividers, a door that closed, and a view that didn't include the parking lot. I hung my 2 team awards on the wall, along with the thank you card from the Harrison account. I created a new folder on my computer labeled Future and filled it with project plans and goals. But I kept the receipts folders too. Archived but accessible, a reminder that sometimes the best weapon against lies is simply the truth, well documented and impossible to deny. One evening, about a month after everything settled, Leo stopped by my office with 2 beers from the pub down the street. So, he said, settling into my visitor chair like we were old friends solving the world's problems, you planning to write a book about this? Because I would absolutely read How to Destroy Your Boss with Spreadsheets, a modern guide. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my beer. You know what? That's not the worst idea. I'd been thinking about it, actually, about how many people face similar situations, about how isolation made people feel powerless, about how documentation and courage could change everything. I started a blog that weekend calling it The Receipt Keeper, a guide to office survival, documentation, and petty victory. I wrote about my experience with Mr. Barrett, changing enough details to avoid legal issues, but keeping the core truth intact. I wrote about the importance of keeping records, knowing your rights, and refusing to be gaslit by people in power. I wrote with humor because if you can't laugh at the absurdity of corporate life, you'll cry, and crying smudges your mascara. I posted it on Sunday night and went to bed expecting maybe my mom and Leo to read it. By Monday morning, the blog had 10,000 views. By Wednesday, it had gone viral. People messaged me their stories, tales of falsified reviews, workplace harassment, bosses who lied and got away with it, stories of people who'd stayed silent because they didn't think anyone would believe them, stories of careers derailed by someone else's insecurity. I read every message, responded when I could, and felt the weight of realizing I'd accidentally started something bigger than my own revenge story. This wasn't just about me and Mr. Barrett anymore. This was about a culture of silence that protected bad managers and sacrificed good employees. The blog grew. I wrote weekly posts about workplace rights, how to document everything with actual templates people could download, red flags of toxic management, and how to file complaints effectively. I shared reader stories with permission, creating a community of people who'd been through similar experiences. My blog became a resource. Employment lawyers started citing it. HR professionals recommended it. I got invited to speak at a local businesswomen's group, then a larger conference, then a TEDx talk that made my hands shake and my voice crack, but apparently resonated because the video got 2 million views. 1 year after clicking open that falsified review, I stood on a stage at a women's leadership conference in front of 300 people. I told the story of receipts, humor, and victory. I talked about the 3 women before me who'd been pushed out and how Mr. Barrett's pattern might have continued if I hadn't documented everything. I discussed the importance of believing women, of creating paper trails, of understanding that sometimes staying silent protects the wrong people. I ended with, you can't control who lies about you, but you can control the receipts that prove they're lying. Document everything, believe yourself, and remember that the best revenge is not just success, it's making sure the people who tried to destroy you can never do it to anyone else. The crowd gave me a standing ovation. I felt like a queen wearing a crown made of receipts and righteous anger and forgiveness I was still working on. After my speech, a line of women waited to talk to me. They shared their stories, they thanked me for speaking up, they asked for advice. One woman, probably in her 50s, hugged me and whispered, "Your story made me file my own complaint. After 20 years of being gaslit by my manager, I finally spoke up." I hugged her back, tears mixing with laughter and pride, and realized that revenge had accidentally become something bigger. It had become a small revolution, one receipt at a time. I still work at the same company, but now I'm in senior leadership with input on HR policies. We've implemented new review protocols, mandatory training on bias and documentation, and a confidential reporting system for employees who suspect review manipulation. I've been asked to join the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, not because I'm particularly diverse, but because I understand what happens when people in power abuse their authority and documentation becomes the only defense. My office still smells like coffee and ambition, with an undertone of victory that never quite fades. My colleagues jokingly call me the receipt queen, a title I've embraced with pride. I have a coffee mug with that phrase now, a gift from Leo, who remains my desk buddy despite our different job levels. We still laugh about fake reviews and mall sushi. We still bring each other coffee when the days get long. Some friendships are forged in normal times. Ours was forged in the fire of workplace drama and mutual appreciation for Hawaiian shirts worn to inappropriate occasions. 1 year after clicking open that falsified review, I stood on a stage at a women's leadership conference in front of 300 people. I told the story of receipts, humor, and victory. I talked about the 3 women before me who'd been pushed out and how Mr. Barrett's pattern might have continued if I hadn't documented everything. I discussed the importance of believing women, of creating paper trails, of understanding that sometimes staying silent protects the wrong people. I ended with, "You can't control who lies about you, but you can control the receipts that prove they're lying. Document everything, believe yourself, and remember that the best revenge is not just success, it's making sure the people who tried to destroy you can never do it to anyone else." The crowd gave me a standing ovation. I felt like a queen wearing a crown made of receipts and righteous anger and forgiveness I was still working on. After my speech, a line of women waited to talk to me. They shared their stories, they thanked me for speaking up, they asked for advice. One woman, probably in her 50s, hugged me and whispered, "Your story made me file my own complaint. After 20 years of being gaslit by my manager, I finally spoke up." I hugged her back, tears mixing with laughter and pride, and realized that revenge had accidentally become something bigger. It had become a small revolution, one receipt at a time. I still work at the same company, but now I'm in senior leadership with input on HR policies. We've implemented new review protocols, mandatory training on bias and documentation, and a confidential reporting system for employees who suspect review manipulation. I've been asked to join the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, not because I'm particularly diverse, but because I understand what happens when people in power abuse their authority and documentation becomes the only defense. My office still smells like coffee and ambition, with an undertone of victory that never quite fades. My colleagues jokingly call me the receipt queen, a title I've embraced with pride. I have a coffee mug with that phrase now, a gift from Leo, who remains my desk buddy despite our different job levels. We still laugh about fake reviews and mall sushi. We still bring each other coffee when the days get long. Some friendships are forged in normal times. Ours was forged in the fire of workplace drama and mutual appreciation for Hawaiian shirts worn to inappropriate occasions. The blog continues. I write less frequently now, but each post still gets thousands of reads. I've published an actual book, Receipts: How Documentation Became My Superpower, that somehow made it onto business bestseller lists. I do speaking engagements on weekends, talking to groups about workplace rights and the importance of paper trails. I've become accidentally semi-famous in HR circles, which is the weirdest kind of fame possible. People recognize me at conferences. Employment lawyers quote my blog in court cases. I once got recognized at a grocery store by someone who thanked me for inspiring her to document her boss's harassment. I stood there in the produce section holding a cantaloupe, feeling surreal and proud, and slightly confused about how my life had become this strange. Sometimes I wonder what happened to Mr. Barrett. Leo, who has connections everywhere, told me he works at a small startup now, in a much lower position than he had at our company. No management responsibilities, no direct reports, just individual contributor work where he can't hurt anyone's career. Part of me feels a tiny bit of sympathy. Most of me remembers those three women before me, their careers derailed, their confidence shattered, and feels that cold anger again. He didn't get away with it. That matters more than sympathy. I've stayed in touch with those three women. We formed an unexpected friendship, bonded by shared trauma and the satisfaction of eventual justice. We have a group chat called Barrett's Mistakes, where we share memes, job opportunities, and support. Two of them have thriving careers at new companies. One started her own consulting business focused on helping companies identify and eliminate toxic management practices. She credits my blog with giving her the courage to turn her experience into expertise. I credit her with reminding me that we're stronger together than apart. The company settled with those three women for undisclosed amounts, but I know it was significant. Enough to make up for derailed careers and damaged confidence. Enough to send a message that this behavior wouldn't be tolerated anymore. The company also promoted two of them back to positions equivalent to what they'd left, though both declined. Some bridges shouldn't be rebuilt, one told me, but thank you for burning down the troll living under this one. We laughed about that metaphor for 20 minutes. My work life is different now. Better, but also weighted with responsibility. Other employees come to me with their concerns, their documentation, their fears about speaking up. I've become an unofficial advocate, which wasn't in my job description, but feels important nonetheless. I help people organize their evidence. I remind them of their rights. I walk them to HR when they're too scared to go alone. I've become what I needed when I opened that falsified review. Someone who believes you, helps you, and shows you that documentation plus courage equals power. The senior VP, Patricia, called me into her office 6 months ago for what she called a career development conversation. I went prepared for anything. She offered me a newly created position, Director of Employee Advocacy and Workplace Culture. You've demonstrated a unique ability to identify problems, document solutions, and create change, she said. We want to formalize that. You'd work with HR, legal, and department heads to ensure our workplace culture matches our stated values. You'd investigate complaints, develop policies, and basically do what you've been doing anyway, but with authority and budget. I accepted immediately. In my new role, I've helped 5 employees document and report various issues, from harassment to discrimination to the occasional falsified review. Not all cases are as dramatic as mine was. Some are subtle, ongoing patterns that require careful documentation and patience. But each case matters. Each person who speaks up makes the next person's choice slightly easier. I've learned that workplace justice isn't usually instant or dramatic. It's slow, careful, documented work. It's believing people who come forward, scared and angry and clutching printouts of emails. It's taking their truth seriously enough to investigate thoroughly. I still maintain my blog, though now I have to be more careful about what I share given my position. I write about general principles rather than specific cases. I focus on empowerment through documentation, on understanding your rights, on the importance of companies actually enforcing their anti-retaliation policies. The comment section has become a community support group where people share advice, resources, and encouragement. I moderate it carefully, removing trolls who tell people to just quit or stop being so sensitive. Those commenters clearly never had to choose between staying silent and risking their career. Those commenters never learned that sometimes silence protects the wrong people. Last month, I presented at our company's annual leadership retreat about creating accountability in management. I stood in front of 50 senior leaders and talked about power, responsibility, and how easy it is for good people to ignore warning signs until someone gets hurt. I showed them data on employee retention, exit interview themes, and the financial cost of toxic management. I didn't mention Mr. Barrett by name, but everyone in that room knew the story. Some looked uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort means growth. Several approached me afterward with their own stories. Times they'd ignored red flags, times they'd protected managers instead of employees, times they'd chosen institutional loyalty over individual justice. Those conversations gave me hope that maybe, slowly, things were changing. My corner office has evolved. The awards are still there, but now they're joined by framed letters from people I've helped, thank you cards from employees who felt heard, and a printed screenshot of my blog's homepage showing 1 million total views. I have a small plant on my desk that Leo gave me, claiming every queen needs a throne plant. It's dying because I forget to water it, but the thought counts. I have a photo of the women's conference where I gave that speech. All of us standing together afterward, arms linked, smiling like we'd won something important. Because we had. I still think about that Tuesday morning when I opened a falsified review and felt my world crack. I think about how scared I was, how angry, how close I came to just accepting it and staying quiet. I think about what might have happened if I hadn't kept those emails, if I hadn't documented everything, if I hadn't had the courage to walk into HR with my 40 pages of receipts. I might have been pushed out like those 3 women before me. Mr. Barrett might have continued his pattern. And I definitely wouldn't be sitting in this office, doing this work, helping other people find their voices. The truth is, revenge is complicated. It feels good in the moment, watching Mr. Barrett get escorted out, getting promoted, seeing justice served. But the real satisfaction isn't in his downfall. It's in knowing that he can't hurt anyone else. It's in the 3 women who got settlements and apologies. It's in every employee who comes to my office now and gets believed instead of dismissed. It's in the small but meaningful changes in how our company handles complaints. Revenge was the spark, but justice became the fire that actually changed things. I've learned that documentation is power, that silence protects abusers more than victims, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep a Google Drive folder organized by date and incident, that humor helps you survive situations that might otherwise break you, that allies matter. Leo's whispered jokes and support meant more than he probably knows. That speaking up is terrifying and necessary. That you can be scared and courageous at the same time. That receipts, when kept properly, become the most powerful weapons in any workplace battle. People ask me if I regret anything, if I wish I'd handled it differently, if I think I was too aggressive, too loud, too much. My answer is always the same. I regret that I had to do it at all. I regret that Mr. Barrett felt entitled to falsify reviews and destroy careers. I regret that 3 women before me suffered in silence. I regret that workplace cultures often protect bad managers at the expense of good employees. But I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret documenting everything. I don't regret speaking up. And I definitely don't regret becoming the receipt queen, because that title represents something important. Proof that silence isn't always golden, and sometimes the loudest message you can send is the truth, backed by 40 pages of time-stamped evidence. My life now is surreal compared to where I started. I'm doing work I never imagined, helping people I never expected to meet, creating change I didn't think one person could make. I still drink too much coffee. I still make inappropriate jokes at inappropriate times. I still keep excessive documentation of everything because paranoia and preparation look very similar. But I also sleep better knowing that I used my anger productively, that my silence became their downfall, not through what I didn't say, but through what I carefully, meticulously, obsessively documented and eventually shared. The blog's tagline is "Receipts speak louder than words." It's become my personal motto, too. In meetings, when someone makes a claim, I ask for documentation. When employees report problems, I help them create paper trails. When leaders propose policies, I ask how we'll measure success. I've become the person who asks for proof, who believes but verifies, who understands that good intentions without documentation are just stories that disappear when it's convenient for powerful people to forget them. Last week, a young woman started at our company fresh out of college. During her orientation, someone mentioned me as the person who took down Barrett with spreadsheets. She came to my office later, nervous and excited, asking for advice. "How do I make sure I never end up in that situation?" she asked. I told her, "Keep records of everything good you do. Save complimentary emails. Document your achievements. Build your receipt folder starting day one, not the day you need it. And remember, you're not paranoid. You're prepared." She thanked me and left, and I watched her walk back to her desk with a determination that reminded me of myself 3 years ago, sitting at my computer, discovering that my manager had lied about my work. The cycle continues, but now with better support systems, clearer policies, and at least one person in senior leadership who understands that sometimes the most important business skill is knowing when to file away an email for future reference. I still have those original receipts folders saved in multiple locations, my personal drive, an external hard drive, and a printed copy in a binder at home labeled The Barrett Files, like it's a true crime documentary. I probably don't need them anymore, but I keep them anyway. They're proof of where I started, what I overcame, and why I do this work now. They're a reminder that one fabricated review tried to destroy my career, and instead, it launched something bigger than revenge. It launched a mission to make sure no one else has to fight this battle alone, armed with nothing but courage and a well-organized Google Drive. So here's what I learned. What I share with every person who asks for advice. Document everything. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Find your allies. Keep your receipts organized. Speak up even when your voice shakes. Believe other people when they speak up too. Use humor to survive, but never to dismiss real problems. Understand that silence protects the wrong people. Know that change is slow but possible. And remember that the best revenge isn't just taking down the person who hurt you, it's building a system where they can't hurt anyone else. I'm 32 now, sitting in my corner office, sipping coffee that's probably too expensive, working on policies that matter, helping people who need it. My official title is Director of Employee Advocacy and Workplace Culture. My unofficial title is the Receipt Queen. I answer to both with equal pride, because 3 years ago, I opened a falsified performance review that tried to destroy me. Instead, I destroyed it with documentation, determination, and 40 pages of proof that truth, when properly filed and strategically deployed, becomes the loudest downfall of all.